What's up, everybody? Matty Willz checking in for yet another episode of Wellbeing Wednesday with Matty Willz. Of course, this is brought to you by MetroHealth. Now, each time we do one of these shows, we talk to a different mental health expert about the various things regarding our mental health. So, without further ado, we'll bring in this week's guest, the one and only Jodi Finney, who works with Metro, and she's going to give you a little bit about her background in just a second. But first, I'd like to say, Jodi, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and joining us for another episode of Wellbeing Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get started, and we do got some really good questions set up here for you, Jodi, you are the Director of Nursing for Behavioral Health Care at MetroHealth, a very prestigious title. And I'm sure that has come with a lot of school in your background, as it often does with you guys. You just want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I first got interested in behavioral health when I was in my undergrad for psychology and criminology. I loved all those classes. When I graduated, I knew I wanted to go into behavioral health in some fashion. So I started working in an outpatient setting. After being there for a couple of years, I wanted to go back to school, and nursing really seemed like the right fit for me. So at that time, I got my BSN. And then continued to work in outpatient. There was an inpatient opportunity that opened up, and so I kind of transitioned down there. And I fell in love with the inpatient setting. And so from there, I kind of worked up through different leadership positions, went back to school for my MSN, and then was looking for a different career opportunity. And I saw this position at MetroHealth, and I applied. I met the team. I really fell in love with the mission and vision of the hospital. And so it just seemed like a great fit. And I've been with Metro since the end of January of this year.
No, so, and I got to say, I've met a lot of the people. I'm sure I've met people that you work with, but just doing this show, I feel like about a half dozen, and everybody's been very pleasant. So I can attest to my very little knowledge of MetroHealth. Yes, those are very good people over there. And you also have, when I was looking through your background, some Ohio ties too, right? You went to a school in Ohio. You're from Ohio?
Yep, I am from Ohio. I went to Capital University in Bexley, Ohio.
Dope. All right. Well, again, thank you for taking some time out of your day, and we'll just get started. So this week's episode is titled How to Get Started with Mental Health Care. I'm sure this is, maybe one of the most challenging aspects for anybody that's kind of seeking this new journey in their life, just how to get going. So let's just get into it. Why do you suppose people resist seeking expert help to begin with?
I think first and foremost, it's kind of like why you refuse to seek getting help in general. So, if you've got a back pain going on, right? We try to doctor it up ourselves. We try to do some stretching and things. And it's not really until it gets really, really bad that you go and seek help. And the same is very much true for mental health as well. People tend to kind of wait and think oh, it'll go away, or I'll get over it, or, maybe I'll feel better in a couple of weeks. And it's really not until it's really, really bad that a lot of people then seek treatment at that point, when it's really better to be more proactive. And when you first start having those feelings, to kind of seek some help at that point. So it doesn't have to get to a place where it's just really impactful to your life.
I can certainly attest to, maybe we don't always want to find out exactly right away. Of course, that's not the right frame of mind, more than likely. But what are some of those barriers that you think exist? So, say a person does want to get the treatment, or at least explore it, but they run into, some of those common barriers. What do you think those are?
I think stigma is a big barrier. There's a huge stigma around mental health. More recently, there are some, people coming out, and so it's getting a lot more attention, and a lot of people are working to kind of get rid of that stigma, but there still is a lot of stigma around it. Another barrier I would say is just access to treatment. Mental health resources are kind of scarce, especially in more rural communities. There's not always the resources there to kind of meet the needs and the demand of the community. Another is, insurance, ability to pay, ability to be able to drive to your appointments, especially if there's not something local in your community and you have to drive an hour and a half away to get the treatment that you need. That can be a huge barrier.
So, and then, going right off of that, then how can we knock down some of these barriers? I mean, obviously we want to put up more centers and things like that, like the beautiful one that just opened in Cleveland Heights. But, what else can we do?
Well, I think as far as, getting access and resources, really there's multiple things that we can do. You can advocate in your community. You can advocate to your state legislatures and things like that to kind of make a larger impact, but kind of within your own community. it really just starts with approaching people that you know are maybe struggling and that they need help. Or if you find out that somebody has, a family member who's gone inpatient because of a suicide attempt, that you're treating that person and providing that support the same way you would if their kid was in the hospital for cancer. Like, behavioral health conditions are not casserole getting conditions. Whereas like if somebody's diagnosed with cancer, the entire community, all of your family and friends are creating this like list of who's going to bring a casserole when. And we don't really have that with mental health conditions. And so that's something that we can easily change ourselves and our community is to start those casserole lists for people when you know that themselves or that a family member is having a mental health crisis.
That's such a good point. A lot of the experts that I've spoken with as part of the Wellbeing Wednesday segment, have said that the word stigma always comes up. I mean, every single episode. And that word is, it means a lot because there's so many different levels to that and reasons why it is a stigma, but then also on the other side of that stigma, what it could prevent. So,
Right.
Advocacy is a very good point that I haven't heard that much. So thank you for that. So, you also mentioned loved ones. If you know a loved one who may need some assistance in their mental health, how for the person that's trying to help their loved one, how can they approach that conversation?
Yeah, the first thing I would recommend is really checking in with yourself and knowing your own bias against, kind of mental health issues or seeking treatment. And we all have them, right? And really understanding how you feel about it before you go and approach somebody. And when you are approaching a loved one, always coming from a place of like, hey, I'm concerned about you. I've noticed, and be very specific, I've noticed that, you don't come to family functions as often, or when you do, you kind of sit in the corner and you used to be the one who was like leading all of the family games, and do a lot more listening than what you do talking. And just give them that space to just really start talking about how they're feeling, and don't, we think sometimes if we share our own experience, it can kind of help them, which can be helpful in the right situation. But as long as we're not, it's not something like, oh, well, I was feeling sad too after this happened, but I got over it and was able to move on. You should be able to do too. So it's really just best to do that listening and then to ask them, how can I help you? How can I support you in this? Can I help you make an appointment? Can I take you to the emergency room if it's at that level? So really asking for, how you can help them and not saying, do you need my help? Because those yes, no questions, if they give you that yes or no, it's kind of the end of the conversation, but asking more of those open-ended questions. How can I help? What's going on? Can help further that conversation and create a space where it's okay for them to talk and share.
Jodi, you might have had some broadcasting training. They tell us that too. Don't ask yes or no questions when we're doing an interview, because that's a good way to have a short interview. But you kind of led into the next question as well. If we do approach them and they say, yes, okay, I need help, then what is that next step that we can do to help them?
Yeah, it kind of depends where they are in that situation. So if it's somebody who maybe has recently started, experiencing some depression, but they are not having thoughts of killing themselves or harming themselves in some way, then encouraging them to reach out to their primary care provider to kind of get, a referral if they need a referral, to get some appointments set up. If it's a situation where you're really concerned about them, encouraging them to go to the emergency room so they can kind of seek immediate treatment, or calling the National Suicide Hotline, that 988. There's lots of really good resources there. It doesn't have to be for somebody who's in, a major crisis, but getting some guidance and some help as to what to kind of do in those moments.
So that line is 988, right?
Yes.
So
Yep. It's
what
like the 911, but for mental health situations.
got you. That's a great way to put it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So if, say you're the person that has sought the behavioral health treatment and you proceed with that process, what can you expect like right off the bat? What are some common things that a person can expect when they're new to getting treated for their mental health?
It's much like starting a new primary care provider. So if you're starting with a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor, that first session is really kind of getting some background information to understanding kind of what's been going on. And then from there, it's developing a plan of treatment together. And so that might include medication, that might include, weekly counseling sessions. but you set up a really targeted goal with your counselor and you kind of work through that through the different sessions. It might be that you might need to be inpatient. That's our highest level of care. And that, again, is very much the same thing. The first couple of days, the providers are asking lots of questions to get lots of background information so that we can really tailor that treatment plan to the person and really get them the needs and the resources to really figure out how to best help them through that immediate crisis. And then from there, we link them up with those outpatient services so they can kind of continue on that journey.
Got you. Really great information, as we always get from everybody over at MetroHealth. So our last question, we kind of went over it, was how can the community help to reduce stigma associated with mental health? I know you mentioned, just being an advocate and trying to reduce the stigma. And, we at the radio station, we do our best with that as well. But I know we can all pitch in just a little bit more. Do you have any more thoughts on what we can do as a community?
Yeah, I think sharing our own stories and our own journeys that we've had with mental health. Everyone has been impacted by mental health, whether it's you personally or a close loved one or a friend. Everyone has some experience that they can share. And, if you go to a mall and you see a bunch of moms, they all share their birthing stories, right? Like they don't hesitate to do that. And we should be doing the same thing with our own mental health stories so that people can, again, it's about ending that stigma and making it okay to talk about these things. Like it's okay to not be okay. And it just creating that environment where people are free to talk about those things and to feel comfortable talking about those things.
Really good insight, really good information. Again, she's Jodi Finney. I want to get this right. The Director of Nursing for Behavioral Health Care at MetroHealth. I know you've gone through a lot to get that title, so I didn't want to botch it. But thank you. Again, all of these interviews have been great, very informative. And did you have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Nothing else. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll just add go Browns, because they've had an effect on all of our mental health, especially if you live in Northeast Ohio this season. But again, Jodi, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Thank you.